What is up, everybody, and welcome back. Today, we are diving into a pretty wild story about pageantry, power, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of envy. We're talking about two giant military parades and one president's very public reaction. If you're ready for this, hit that like button and subscribe, because it's going to be a ride.
Okay, so the whole thing kicks off with two massive military parades happening on completely opposite sides of the planet. One in D.C., one in Beijing.
And right at the center of this story, according to an opinion piece by writer Michael Daly, is one president and how he reacted to both of them.
Daly's article really zeroes in on one big question, which is kind of the theme for our whole explainer today. Was this a serious case of parade envy? So to really get what the author is arguing, we've got to start with the American parade. This one was all about celebrating the U.S. Army's anniversary. Now, as the article points out, the hype for this event was huge. President Trump had promised this absolutely unforgettable spectacle. We're talking thundering tanks, the whole 9 yards. But the reality? Well, the author paints a very, very different picture of how things actually went down. Yeah, instead of those thundering tanks, the article describes a much more sleepy scene. It mentions the president seeming to doze off, the First Lady closing her eyes, and even Secretary of State Marco Rubio yawning. Apparently, the biggest excitement was whatever was happening with the vice president's kids. All right, now let's flip the script and head over to Beijing, because the parade there, as the article describes it, was on a completely different level, a whole other universe, really. And this slide really just lays it all out, doesn't it? The author calls the D.C. parade paltry, but the Beijing one? Huge. He contrasts dozing officials with troops goose-stepping in perfect unison. It's a stark comparison. The piece goes into detail on what it calls a strong man's dream. You've got these super fit soldiers moving as one, ultra-destructive modern weapons rolling by, all-female detachments, jets roaring overhead, and to top it all off, President Xi surveying everything from an open-topped limo. The author even highlights this moment where President Xi is addressing the troops through 4 microphones, his voice just booming across Tiananmen Square.
Okay, so this brings us to the absolute core of the author's argument, President Trump's reaction to this massive show that he wasn't even invited to. And for that, the article digs right into his Truth Social posts. His first post on the topic, as the author reports it, kind of starts out by wondering aloud if China would remember to thank the U.S. for its help back in World War II. But then, the author points out a pretty noticeable shift in tone. He reads this next message as a classic sign of someone feeling, left out of the party. And then comes this sign-off, all caps. The author highlights this as the peak of what he sees as Trump's frustration, directly addressing the other world leaders who were there. But the story doesn't stop there. According to the article, when Trump later talked to reporters, his whole take on it changed. His claim was basically that this massive, insane parade was actually all put on for him. So after laying all of this out, the sleepy parade, the massive parade, the Truth Social posts, what's the author's final conclusion about Trump's reaction? Well, the piece wraps up with this really sharp metaphor. The author suggests Trump's claims were just wishful thinking, comparing him to an uninvited bully who insists the cool kids at the party were really thinking about him the whole time. So that's one writer's take on a serious case of parade envy. But it does make you wonder, right? Are these giant military parades really just about national pride, or are they a much bigger geopolitical power play? Let us know what you think down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.